कृष्ण मुरारी, जय कृष्ण मुरारी। कृष्ण मुरारी, जय कृष्ण मुरारी।
कृष्ण मुरारी, जय कृष्ण मुरारी।
मुरलीधर पीतांबरधारी,
मुरलीधर पीतांबरधारी।
मुरलीधर पीतांबरधारी,
मुरलीधर पीतांबरधारी।
माई मीरा प्रभु गिरिधारी,
माई मीरा प्रभु गिरिधारी।
माई मीरा प्रभु गिरिधारी,
माई मीरा प्रभु गिरिधारी।
माई मीरा प्रभु गिरिधारी,
माई मीरा प्रभु गिरिधारी।
माई मीरा प्रभु गिरिधारी।
माई मीरा प्रभु गिरिधारी।
कृष्ण मुरारी, जय कृष्ण मुरारी।
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 वृंदावन गोवर्धन धारी,
वृंदावन गोवर्धन धारी।
वृंदावन गोवर्धन धारी।
वृंदावन गोवर्धन धारी।
सूरदास के हृदय विहारी,
सूरदास के हृदय विहारी।
सूरदास के हृदय विहारी,
सूरदास के हृदय विहारी।
सूरदास के हृदय विहारी,
सूरदास के हृदय विहारी।
सूरदास के हृदय विहारी।
सूरदास के हृदय विहारी।
कृष्ण मुरारी, जय कृष्ण मुरारी।
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 मुरलीधर पीतांबरधारी,
मुरलीधर पीतांबरधारी।
मुरलीधर पीतांबरधारी।
मुरलीधर पीतांबरधारी।
माई मीरा प्रभु गिरिधारी,
माई मीरा प्रभु गिरिधारी।
माई मीरा प्रभु गिरिधारी।
माई मीरा प्रभु गिरिधारी।
कृष्ण मुरारी, जय कृष्ण मुरारी।
कृष्ण मुरारी, जय कृष्ण मुरारी।
वृंदावन गोवर्धन धारी,
वृंदावन गोवर्धन धारी।
वृंदावन गोवर्धन धारी।
वृंदावन गोवर्धन धारी।
सूरदास के हृदय विहारी,
सूरदास के हृदय विहारी।
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 कृष्ण मुरारी, जय कृष्ण मुरारी।
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 बोलिए बोलिए वृंदावन बिहारी लाल की, गिरिराज धरन की, बोलो भाई सब संतन की, सद्गुरुनाथ महाराज की, आज के आनंद की जय।
Hari Om. Hari Om, everyone. Hope and pray that all of you are doing well. And hope you have gotten your booster's booster as well, just to be on safe side. If you are planning to travel to India, please be aware, please be cautious, please be careful. Things are rising up again. People, I think, have taken it lightly. Anyways, be careful. We will begin with the usual, the Shanti Patha, and then our Brahmachari Hari Chaitanya will do the invocation of Atmabodha, lead us with today's shlokas. Amazing shlokas today's. They're my favorite, those two shlokas. So he'll lead and we'll repeat. I'll repeat. And then Brahmacharini Divya, she will go first explaining, and then Hari, and then I'll sum it up. Okay, let's begin. Let's start the invocation. सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परं ब्रह्मा तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। Give me 1 second, Hari. Yes.
तपोभिक्षीणपापानां शान्तानां वीतरागिणां मुमुक्षूणामपेक्ष्योऽयम् आत्मबोधो विधीयते। 33 अमनस्त्वान्न मे दुःखः
अमनस्त्वान्न मे दुःखः
रागद्वेषभयादयः
रागद्वेषभयादयः
अप्राणो ह्यमनः शुभ्र
अप्राणो ह्यमनः शुभ्र
ityādi śrutiśāsanāt.
ityādi śrutiśāsanāt.
nirguṇo niṣkriyo nityah.
nirguṇo niṣkriyo nityah.
nirvikalpo niraṃjanaḥ.
nirvikalpo niraṃjanaḥ.
nirvikāro nirākārah.
nirvikāro nirākārah.
nityamukto'smi nirmalaḥ.
nityamukto'smi nirmalaḥ. Thank you, Hari.
Hari Om. So in verse 31, we declared that aham brahmeti. The Guru emphasized that the consequences of saying aham brahmeti is very important to pay attention to. And so in verse 32, we saw that if we understood that statement, then we have absolutely no cares about the world of objects, whether it would be our house, our family, our name, fame, wealth, or health. And when I say no cares, meaning that the validity of those attachments have any value to it. He also goes on to say that if you really understand that sentence, then you have no fear of death, old age, or that you were never born. All of these are the properties of the body. And since you are not that body, these cannot bother you. So now in today's verse, we will then take it to the next layer of the mind. What are the consequences of understanding aham brahmeti in terms of our experiences with our mind? So, amanastvānna me duḥkharāgadveṣabhayādayaḥ. Because of not being the mind, there is no sorrow, attachment, malice, fear, and etc. for me. So with the very first word, amana. First, mana means mind. Amana means mindless. So who is the Mahatma? Amana, so the Mahatma is mindless. So you can't go on claiming, we have no mind, we have no mind. You can't say it in those terms. When they say amana, it is beyond the mind. That means we are beyond any of the qualities that belong to the mind. Here, that which is listed is dukkha and its opposite sukha, raga and dvesha, and underlying all of that is bhaya. They've only listed a few, but it's enough to get us started to understand that it actually captures all the spectrums of the emotions that happen in the mind. They are there, but they cannot affect me. So we can, when a Mahatma behaves, right, we see him expressing these emotions, that when it's necessary, he scolds with what seems like anger. When he sees that compassion is needed, that soothing emotion, he emotes well. And it's always in accordance with what's necessary that's in front. But that doesn't mean that he has become attached to it, that he's commanded by those emotions and that he's subject to it. When we feel dukkha, fear, raga, dvesha, we are pulled along like it's a riptide. We can't fight against it. We can't control it. It's a struggle for us. That's when we know the mind, that we are under the control of the mind and that we are not beyond the mind. When we have become beyond it, we have command over it. So this is important to remember, that when we truly establish ourselves in the knowledge of aham brahmeti, it takes us beyond the fluctuations of the mind. And so we can ask, okay, we've listed all of this. You said that we are not the body, we're not any of the indriyas, we can't have any attachment to the objects that are perceived by the senses. We're not the body, we're not the mind. Then how can you say we're something other than that? Are you just making this up? And immediately Adi śaṅkarācarya ji states, ityādi śrutiśāsanāt. These are the declarations of the Shruti. The Vedas are the only valid pramanas for these declarations. It's not some theory, it's not some idea of an individual. It is Sat, the truth that is recognized by the rishis. So Vedas are our only pramanas. And Adi Śaṅkarācarya ji specifically quotes Mundaka Upanishad, specifically from chapter 2. It says 2.1.2. So, and he specifically picks out the third pada. And he says, aprāṇo, amanah, śubhra. In these three words, the shrutis are negating all three bodies. Aprāṇo is that which is beyond, and I'm not going to say without a prana, it's beyond the pranas, right? So it's beyond the physical body level. Amanah, which is beyond the subtle body, and śubhra, which is beyond the causal body. Technically speaking, śubhra, it translates as pure. But here we're meaning pure light, which is the opposite of the darkness. And what darkness specifically? Darkness of ignorance, which is the quality of the causal body. So that's how that logic goes. Śubhra, pure, negates the causal body. So we've come to the point of negation. The beauty of the next couple verses become the instructions for where our attention should be when we're sitting in the seat of contemplation. And if you look at the verses, it's almost like a list, right? Do I have to sit here and go through the list repeating like it's a mantra, like on a japamala, just repeat this list? No, we'll dig into it. But the list, so actually with each of the words, it's a formula for us to think about each term as other than this, other than this. So right now our experiences only come from the body, mind, and intellect. And when you say that supreme reality, that Satchit Ananda, we don't know how to connect that, how to identify with that, how to recognize it. So the Shrutis give us this reverse process, this negation process, that which is other than this. So now let's take a look at this list. We have nirguṇo, which is that which is without properties. And in chemistry, when you think, okay, what is the properties of certain elements? It directly comes from our senses, whether it's taste, whether it's smell, sight, color, sound, whatever it is. So when we say nirguṇo, that means any experience I have in terms of my senses, Brahman is other than that. So Gurudev had given a hilarious example that we sing Madhura Ashtakam, right? Adharam Madhuram, Vadanam Madhuram, Nayanam Madhuram. So are we saying that Bhagavan tastes sweet? Does that mean I have to go and lick Bhagavan Krishna to understand who he is? It's, if I have to describe Bhagavan using what I know, and for example, I take the taste and smell of my sense, then I can say Bhagavan is Madhuram, sweet. But Bhagavan himself is nirguṇa, he is without qualities. So when I sit in the seat of meditation, I take anything that I recognize with my body and find that which is other than that. So this is a simple formula we can apply to the rest of these. Niṣkriyo, without actions. Actions relates to the body. If I see and recognize actions, Brahman is other than that. Nirvikalpo, without thoughts or desires. Again, we're going through the body, mind, and intellect, saying everything that's other than this, other than the body, other than the thoughts, other than the desires. Niraṃjanaḥ, here it's without dirt. So specifically, what are they referring to as dirt? In this case, it's the causal body, specifically in the form of vasanas. Other than the vasanas, Brahman is other than that. Nitya, eternal. It is other than time. It is beyond time. So when we think about the Einsteinian world of time and space, Brahman is other than that. Then nirvikāro. So in terms of anything that we've listed, anything that has changes, Brahman is other than that. Something that is without change. Oh, the words are changed on my... nirākāro. That which is without shape. Sometimes we say Atman is indwelling self. So does that mean it takes the shape of, the myself? Is it my shape? If it's an ant, does it take the shape of an ant? If it's an elephant, does it take the shape of an elephant? We say even in that case, Brahman is beyond shapes. nityamuktaha. It is ever liberated. And what's funny is if you put it in comparison to nirmala, which is untouched with anything, Gurudev gives an example that when you've seen the rope and snake, right, and you've constantly struggled to recognize that it's not a snake, it's not a snake, it's not a snake, and suddenly realize it's a rope, then you realize there never was a snake. There was no reality to that illusion. So in the same way, what is the illusion we're experiencing? This individuality. We experience the pain of samsara, then we go through the pains of sadhana, put in all this effort, then we come to the point of realization and say, yes, I'm liberated. But once you've become liberated and you realize that true self, you realize that was the only real thing. Everything I've experienced other than this was just an illusion. It had no reality. So nityamuktaha is it's ever liberated. Nirmala is it's never touched by any of these qualities that we were listing before. So this list is for us to use in the seat of meditation, that anytime a disturbance comes up in my mind, it takes usually a form of any one of these that we've listed. It's either a sense, it's a action of our body, it's a thought in our mind, it's a vasana that comes up, it's a perspective of time, it's changes that we recognize, it's shapes that we recognize, and it's any limitations that can come up. When we recognize that, we have to remember Brahman is other than that. And so Gurudev, in his conclusion for this, does something very interesting. He asks the audience, so all of these are of, and the audience mumbles Brahman, Paramatma, Atma, and then he shouts, you, nityamukto'smi, I am. And that's the very small word, but it's the most important word in this verse, asmi. That though the explanations may look like we're making Brahman, Atma, Paramatma as an object somewhere, this is a subjective science. It is describing your glory. It's describing my glory. Asmi is the most important word at the end of the day. Okay. Hari Om Swamiji, that's all I have.
Thank you, Divya. Hari.
Hari Om. So one concept that's introduced now, that after going through the logic on so many levels, that karma is not what gives me liberation, it's purely jnana. Then what is the nature of that knowledge? How do I go about doing vichara, thinking deeply so I understand the concepts that are given? Then how is that reiterated time and again? We've gone through that as well. Analogies that I can use. Gharta is the classic example. We've seen that several times now. The bubbles in the ocean. All of these examples bring my mind to understand at an intellectual level what the concept is. Now we come to nididhyasa. That unbroken contemplation on a single thread of thoughts to get rid of viparita bhavanas. Those remaining tendencies that still remain for that seeker, where despite understanding it intellectually, what the Siddhanta says of their true nature, the seeker still has these lingering tendencies that bring him back to that level of thinking, I am this body, I am this mind, I am this intellect. And so this kind of contemplation, once the mind has been calmed down, is that next step in the seeker's journey. Now, at a certain point, if I'm thinking about anything, whether in the secular world or a spiritual concept, I don't need too much explanation to dwell on something after a certain point, when I've understood the crux of something, where a simple 1 or 2 words is enough for me to remember what I've learned and to think deeper on it, which is so evident in these 2 shlokas here, where just a few trigger words can lead me down a path of so much thoughtful vichara that gives me so much more, it reinstates it so much what the concept that I'm studying is. And that's what we'll look at now. So it starts out saying, name duḥkharāgadveṣabhayādayaḥ, all of these things, sorrow, attachment, malice, fear, that I don't have any of these in my mind. And if I just read it at this level and don't look at the reason that's given of amanastvānna, that I don't have a mind, I could think that the reason I don't have these impurities in my mind is because my mind is at such an optimal level where it's so pure, that my mind is cleansed, pure, and so therefore I don't have these defects. But that would still be the wrong way of looking at it. With the hetu, the reason given here of amanastvānna, not having a mind, I find that there is no optimal level of the mind where it's free of any impurity. As long as I hold on to this mind, I always see that it's impure. It's made up of matter, albeit subtle matter. Therefore, it can always have its oscillations, but it's only because I don't assume my mind as my identity. I have no mind at this point. That's when I know that I'm not going to be oscillated with the way the mind wavers. Not that I have a perfect mind, I have no mind at all, because the very nature of my mind is to fall into rajas and tamas at certain points. So these reasons are very important of why this Siddhanta is given. And then again, in the next pada, aprāṇah hi amanāḥ śubhra, that without prana, without mind, and pure, and like Divyaji pointed out, this comes from the Mundakopanishad. Where the Mundakopanishad is a 64 mantra Upanishad that's very comprehensive. It has so many 5 or 6 major analogies that are used in everyday prakarana granthas, where it's great food for thought in that text. And I want to point out one special thing here, that in this Upanishad, the progression is as follows of thought. First, it's given that knowledge is of 2 types. There's that aparavidya and paravidya. Aparavidya, that lower knowledge that has to do with the natural world, and then paravidya, of that highest reality. Once that is given, the next section goes into how karmas have a specific purpose to them. When I do any kind of upasana with that sakama mentality with desire, I will get what I want, but that's not the highest. That I should be striving for something higher, which karma can't give me. And then there's that mantra that Swamiji goes through often. In this class also several months ago, pariksha lokan karmachitan brahmanaha. That seeker, upon seeing that this world of karma and aspiring to have certain objects, that doesn't give me anything. Once he acquires that vairagya and builds it up, he finds a guru to be initiated into the knowledge of the highest. And then is given the absolute nature of Brahman. That's the mantra where this section comes in, absolute nature of Brahman. Then going from there, we see Brahman as the cause of all and methods of understanding, pointers to what that Brahman is given. I went through this for one specific reason, to show that in this text also of ātmabodha, isn't that the same process more or less that was followed? First starting out by showing that karmas get you certain things, karma does not get you what that jnana is though. That's completely outside the ambit of what karma can produce, only knowledge gives that. And then understanding deeper that this is the only knowledge that can liberate me, pointers of Brahman are given, and then it moves forward from there. So in any text where the process is laid out for a sadhaka, this is how it's done. And at this step, knowing that the nature of Brahman is nothing but, as Gurudev shouted, you, me, that is what's to be known. That's the crux and the very important part going forward from here. Now, as we look at the 34th shloka, often quoted, so much food for thought here. If we were to clump some of these lakshanas together, some of these pointers together, nirguṇah, attributeless, nirākārah, formless, nirvikārah, without modification. All of these 3 pointers then point me to the fact that what I consider to be my body, the 3 bodies, and the problems they give me, I'm not any one of these. This is like a simple code that troubleshoots a system that's gone defunct, where any issue that I think I face, whether on the body level, mental level, intellectual level, just by going through these 3 attributes, it's not that it fixes the problem for me. I see that that's not even my problem in the first place. Only when I identify with these equipments do I find that I follow them and whatever their problems are become my problems. But at the point where I understand these 3 attributes perfectly, I find that I have no problems at all. Easy to say, much harder when it has to be practiced. So these are 3 markers there. Then niṣkriyo, without action. That as a mature seeker, then the Shastra points me to a certain point where my ultimate goal cannot simply be to do good and be good. Because that is still within the realm of kriya, performing certain actions in accordance with dharma. That is a noble thing to do. That is necessary on the seeker's path, but that's not the very highest. That doesn't mean I've reached the pinnacle. In fact, if that was the case, we'd only have dharma, artha, kama as purusharthas. The pradhana purushartha, the highest one of those is moksha, which means there's something higher than action, and that's why niṣkriyo. To understand that, I have to see myself without action either, without dharma and adharma. So the next set then, nityaha, eternal, nirvikalpaha, without any desire or thought, nirmalaḥ, ever pure. And these last two here, nirvikalpaha, without any desire or thought specifically, and being nirmalaḥ, ever pure. In ātmabodha, when we looked at what mumukshutvam was, that intense desire for moksha, it's moksha me bhuyat iti ichha. Let me attain liberation. That intense desire is mumukshutvam, is what was given. Now the doubt can come in mind that here it's given nirvikalpa, that I have no thoughts, nor do I have any desires. But then we see, isn't that desire for moksha, isn't that a desire still? Where that question comes up often. But then we find nirmalaḥ here. Because karma is what gives me anything I want. A desire leads to an action, and that gives me what I need. Moksha is not something that I need from outside. It's not something that I don't have, therefore I desire and I have to go get. Nirmalaḥ, I was ever pure, ever without any kind of mala on me. That veil that's there because of ignorance, only that has to be lifted, revealing what was always there. So with these different attributes here and these pointers, looking at them, a doubt may come at certain points. Other pointers fill those gaps in my understanding then. That even when it's given for me to understand in ātmabodha a certain way, that intense desire for liberation is that mumukshutvam. It's called desire at that point, ichha. Really, desire is something that I want for this assemblage of my ahankara. Moksha is that what I'm striving for is letting go of ahankara completely. How can there be any desire at that point? So these pointers here really get my mind churning, and it's perfect for that nityasana. So at this point, a shloka with so many markers like this, it's not that I have to take all of them at once and try to reconcile all the thoughts in my mind. Even taking one of them, following that train of thought, getting rid of all the misconceptions that I have, and coming to a place where I can effortlessly dwell and see that all the logic is making sense to me. From that point onward, we see that the sadhaka really flourishes. And up until then, so much logical machinations have been given, so many examples of things I can look at and make analogies and comparisons. But here, Bhagavan Shri Adi Śaṅkarācarya expects that even one word is enough to take us down that vichara train. And that's what he set us up for at this point in the text. That's all I have, Swamiji.
Thank you, Hari. Now these two shlokas, can you all hear me clearly? Cool. Now these two shlokas, it focuses on the very core of the entire process of Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. Now, Shravana is where we acquire the pramāṇa, the right means of knowledge. Manana, it removes samshaya, any kinds of doubt. So therefore, the student at this level is encouraged to ask questions. There should never be a mindset that, oh, should I even entertain these questions? I'll appear dumb. Then we will never have the opportunity to grow out from there on. Therefore, the student should trust the teacher, which is first to be established, and then without feeling the pressure of being judged, be able to ask however trivial that question may be with regards to this Shravana and the the pramana that is received. This churning and making sure that all the layers of doubts that exist have to be culled, have to be removed. Then comes the process, then comes the step wherein, see, the major difference between the other sampradayas, or for that fact the other religions, both within the sampradaya, meaning sampradaya, there is the umbrella of dharmic sampradayas. Now within the dharmic sampradayas, there is Advaita, Vishishtadvaita, Dvaita, Nimbarka, Gaudiya. For all practical purposes, we will include Charvaka, Bauddha, then the Jaina, all of these. So within the dharmic fold, all these different sampradayas, and outside the dharmic fold, when you compare it with the other religions of the book, the major difference is, especially to the Advaita-Vedanta, the nuanced understanding of this step, nididhyasana. Now, what does nididhyasana mean? Literally, to translate it, to meditate upon. But then, many of us in our thinking have grown up thinking that, hearing that you need to meditate to have a calmer mind. Even today, that is what is being sold. But whereas in Advaita Vedanta, the understanding is, grasp the concept, which is where we usually lose track of it. So get the concept very clearly. In Advaita Vedanta, what we are going through all these pointers is to say that this Atma Chaitanya is not something to be created, acquired and established in. It is ever present. And that which is ever present, now that you have to claim it to be your own true nature. Because of the ignorance, you are not seeing that as one's own true nature. Now that you have this right wisdom, now when you are saying, when you have this right wisdom, you have to establish yourself in it, claim that it is your true nature and be established in it. What does it mean? Just like when I see a pen, when I see a phone, when I see a pin, whatever it be, different things that I can see, when I see them because of the presence of light. If there is no light, I cannot see. The very fact that I am seeing a pen, is because of the presence of that light. Without that light, I would never seen that pen. Now, through the science, through the chapter of light and refraction, you come to realize that there is light's presence which actually illumines everything, which was what happening even before. It is not that you have created that light. Similarly, this Atma Chaitanya is that vastu because of whose presence I see Nama Rupa. Pratibodha viditam matam, says Kenopanishad. Meaning, through every recognition, that which is happening is Atma Chaitanya only. We are giving it the attributes of name and forms. It has never ceased to be. It has never been a position where it never existed. So to say that I have to sit and there alone I will find in that meditative quietude that supreme Atma Chaitanya to now dance with it, even when you are sleeping, Atma Chaitanya alone is. Even in Sushupti Avastha, Atma Chaitanya alone is. So in Jagrata Avastha also, this Atma Chaitanya alone is. Then what is the difference between a Jnani's version of looking at it and versus an Ajnani's version of looking at? Jnani sees Nama Rupa alone, whereas a Jnani sees, did I say Jnani? The Ajnani sees the Nama Rupa alone, whereas the Jnani sees only Atma Chaitanya. That which has always existed, persisted, without which my perception earlier as a Ajnani would not have happened of that Nama Rupa either. The very reason for which the Nama Rupa is recognized and entertained and indulged in is because of the presence of that Atma Chaitanya. Therefore, then what is the purpose of this Nididhyasana? The purpose, therefore, of Nididhyasana is not to go there and experience. First of all, it is not a state of no mind. That we will have nicely in Sushupti Avastha itself. उसके लिए कोई साधन की जरूरत नहीं है. Eat nice curd rice and then sleep, खर्राटे मार के सो गए. You already reached the state of no mind. So that is not the purpose of the Advaita-Vedanta pointing at Atma Chaitanya. It is a recognition of the presence of my true nature. That Atmanubhuti is what we are calling it as moksha. And it is not something that is to be ascertained in a special status, having reached where alone I have this and rest of the time I don't. Then the very Atma Chaitanya and its pervasiveness, we are negating it by our own wrong understanding. And that is what has to be negated. Am I getting across? So the purpose of Nididhyasana therefore then remains to remove erroneous habitual errors of anxiety, errors of fears, errors of insecurities, errors of wrong identifications. These errors that we are consumed constantly by happens because of the ajnana and the wrong identities that it is born in as. Therefore, to remove that, I meditate upon. Meditate upon what? That has to be also clear. Many think that just by closing the eyes and breathe in, breathe out. I poke a lot of fun about this. Breathe in positivity, breathe out negativity. करके दिखाओ यार कोई. Try, please show. Let us snort some positivity and पता नहीं negativity. How do you? चीख आती है क्या नेगेटिविटी जब बाहर जाता है तो? So these pranayamic exercise, there is a word for it. That is pranayama exercise. That is not called meditation. Then what is meditation? Now those of us who have insecurities, meditate upon aham purna chaitanyaha. I am purna. Insecurity is that where there is a lack. There can be a lack at a physical level, at a mind level, at an intellectual level, at a memory level. But none of these is my nature. It is just the instrument. Therefore, the insecurity is at that level, not at the level of this, which I am. I am not these. Therefore, what do I meditate upon? I meditate upon that Purna Tattva, having recognized which I know, I clearly understand. Therefore, there is conviction that these changes or the lack that happens in at that level is not something that I should be perturbed about, cannot disturb. Therefore, he goes into the 33rd shloka where he says, amanastvānna me duḥkharāgadveṣabhayādayaḥ. Where will you experience dukkha, raga, dvesha, bhaya, ityādi? Ityādi matlab etc. Kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsara, asmita, raga, abhinivesha. You can continue. Etc. Ityādi. Where will that all experience happen? It can happen only if it can happen only in the realm of mind. Mind is agitated. Something that was very dear to me, I lost it. ठीक है, दूसरा खरीद लो. There was a sentimental value to it. ना उसका कोई कुछ नहीं कर सकता अभी. You can choose to be mental every centimeter of your life or choose to grow out of it and said it was the value for it, it was being used in certain way, let me fill it with something else. Something that you were attached with has gotten disturbed, I get disturbed. See, at least mine, even when I'm with a stable desk and sitting, my handwriting is not that great. There are these, at least in India, I used to see the bus conductors that would stand in the bus in the rush hour, stand and scribble in their little paper notes. The numbers ekdam sahi girte hain unke. My joke was, stop the bus, they will not be able to write. We are trying to be in that state of agitation, being the mind. We are not able to separate ourselves to see that all the agitations creating the dukkha is because of raga, where it creates a dvesha, bhaya, ityādi. Ayyo, what will happen? You bite off all the nails that you have. It happens only in the realm of mind, and mind is an equipment that which I am using. I am not the mind. But somewhere in Vyavahara, to apply this aspect, we totally, completely, right royally forget about it. हम भूल जाते हैं उसके बारे में. It never even clicks, it never even occurs. Wait a second. That is happening in the mind. What is agitating it? That is a root cause. What is the solution for it? Vishleshatmak buddhi. But instead, ayyo, I am agitated. Ayyo, I am agitated. How? Okay, you have gone through the ups and downs of it. At least then you have to come down to that point wherein some people need that venting out. ठीक है, vented. Now let us invent that there is a problem, there is a situation, find a solution for it. Because it is at the level of mind. Amanaskaha here doesn't mean no mind state. It is meant I am not being impacted by that which is happening, the khichdi that is pucking, khichdi that is cooking in the mind level. Amanas kaha. Now where does this śrutisāsana come? Shasana means the instruction given or the guidelines given or the guidance given in the Shruti Vakya. Both of them have mentioned Mundaka Upanishad, and a very beautiful aprāṇo, hyamanāḥ, śubhra, ityādi. It is mentioned in the Upanishad. What is it trying to say? Now start doing the manana. If I am agitated, where is the agitation coming from? Sometimes at a very physical level, I am getting very agitated, I am very restless, I am very... If you have raised children, I'm sure you have, they don't know how to articulate that they are hungry. They're toddlers. They don't know how to articulate it. They start being cranky. And the mother understands that whenever that fellow is cranky, that huffing and puffing, oh, बेचारे को भूख लगी है. The pranas are agitated. And how does the prana upashamana happen? Feed them appropriate food. And once Madhya Pradesh is full, Uttar Pradesh is free. At a very physical level. Agitation at that level, solution at that level. I am a witness of all of these. Therefore, meditate upon nididhyasitavyam to remove these erroneous habitual patterns. Meditate upon what? Nirguṇah, niṣkriyo, nityo, nirvikalpo, niraṃjanaḥ, nirvikāro, nirākāro, nityamukto'smi, nirmalaḥ. What are all these? Ahamasmi. That is the most important. Chaitanya is nirguṇah, niṣkriyo, nityo. That Chaitanya is my true nature. I am it. That is where I connect to that wisdom, to that knowledge, that it is my true nature. चिदानंद रूप शिवोहम शिवोहम. गाना बैंड बजाने के लिए नहीं है वो. To swing to that tune. Chidananda Rupaha Shivoham Shivoham. And then continue. Shivoham Shivoham Satchidanandoham. It बैंड बाजे के लिए नहीं है वो. Shivaha aham asmi. Okay, there are enough words here, enough pointers here. I'll not take that one. Nirguṇah. Gunaha, attributes. Attributes means what? It can be acquired, it can be lost, it can be regained or reconstructed. Nature, swarupaha. You can never lose it. That Swarupa which does not have any of these modifications, because any kind of quality is a modification which can be acquired, lost or regained or reconstructed. This Atma Chaitanya is surely that one thing where you can never lose it. Try. It can never be lost. You can lose your mind on something. You can never lose Atma Chaitanya. There is no guna vishesha to it. Nirguṇah, niṣkriyo. It doesn't exist because of certain kriya, nor is supported by any kriya, nor feels fulfillment in a certain kriya. Even those sadhakas who say, when I do japa, I feel really good. When I do my puja, I feel lot of shanti. Anything that is a result of a certain doing, this Atma Chaitanya is not the result of anything. Niṣkriyo. Neither does it get sustained by it, nor participates in any. Niṣkriyo. In its presence, everything else jumps. The corn, जो मक्के के भुट्टे होते हैं ना, so the corn is peeled and it is there in the pan. In the presence of heat, heat is not doing anything. Just in the mere presence of that heat, Tom tata janatai tata janatai tata janatai. That kriya is not in heat. In its presence, the corn pops. Right? Similarly, the entire movement happens in its presence. It per se is niṣkriyo. Therefore, Bhagavan or that Paramatma has done this to me. No, Paramatma is not the doer. I, the mind attached to it, I become the doer. Paramatma is niṣkriyo. Cannot attribute it to Paramatma. Nityaha. Nitya means what? We have seen in ātmabodha. Nitya vastu tu ekam brahma tad vyatiriktam sarvam anityam. Now, even in this, we say first, even if we refer to the earlier shloka, that sthula sukshma karana sharira annamaya pranamaya manomaya vijnanamaya anandamaya. First step is to understand I am not it. Second step is to understand it can be experienced only because it is a projected reality. Third step is to understand, like in the Matrix, this is, if you really want to bend the spoon, it is really impossible. But if you understand that there is no spoon, but it is your own self, anything can happen. सोचो विचारो इस पे. That there is no such multitude. All that which can exist is that existential principle which is my true nature. Nityaha. Nirvikalpaha. That which has sankalpa, vikalpa, all of these modifications at the level of thought, the mind can churn these different patterns, but Atma Chaitanya itself is not a product of thought or thought processing. Therefore, when with the buddhi we are trying to ascertain, ye kya cheez hai? No, it is not something that can be ascertained through the buddhi. The only thing that the buddhi can ascertain is that that is the source. That which I am getting identified with is only a reflected aspect of it. That clarity that buddhi has to reach to. Nirvikalpaha. Niraṃjanaḥ and nirmalaḥ means pretty much the same thing. That it is very pure. There is absolutely no scope of impurity. And what is the impurity that we are talking about? Mother of all aberrations. There's only one. We always get caught up in karma, karma se pehle vasana, vasana se pehle karma, uske karma se pehle vasana, uske pehle... Swamiji, in the very first birth, what was it? Was it karma? Was it vasana? Neither. It was the mother of all of this is ajnana. Ajnana is the mala. In this Atma Chaitanya, there cannot exist mala. There is only Chaitanya-Tattvam. There is no otherness. It is one without a second. One without a second. If there is a possibility of something other than it, then I can say it is pure or impure. There is nothing other than it to exist. Anything other than existence can only be non-existent. Therefore, it never exists. Nirvikāro. Vikara, modifications happen at the physical level, at the emotional level, at the intellectual level, at the prāṇa level, to be more subtle. But all these vikaras, whenever the agitations happen, this jnana should happen that the agitation is not me. Ayyayo, I am agitated. Pause. I can never be agitated. But you are experiencing agitation. Who or where is that agitation? Is it at a physical level? Is it at an emotional level? Is it at an intellectual level? Identify it. Find the source of that agitation. Find a solution for it. Period. There are certain situations where you may not find solutions. Accept it. And when you can find solution, patch it in. But it is at that layer alone. Chaitanya-Tattva is not something that stays agitated or can be agitated. समझ रहे हैं? निर्विकारः, nirākārah. Nirākārah, there is no shape, form, concept that can define it. And this is where Gurudev says it beautifully. You define it, you defile it. Any definition that you put, you're only defiling it. Therefore, do not try to box this in a definition, because that which is boxed in a definition is a concept born out of our own buddhi. This is not a conceptual state, it is an subjective, personal, experiential state. That which I already am. Because of ajnana layer, I am not able to access to it. Remove the layer, you only realize that which I already am. And that is the abhyasa that has to be done. As I said earlier, what is the purpose of this nididhyasana? Supposing there is desire that is disturbing. I am nirvikārah, I am niṣkāmaha. Meditate on those words. I'm a lot of anger issues. Then aham shantaha. aham purnah, aham prashanta chaitanya tattva is something that is my unbroken nature. Meditate on that. Nididhyasitavyam. So that the erroneous habitual patterns can be uprooted with the intensity of this meditation. इसको meditation बोलते हैं. Very beautiful, very powerful 2 shlokas. I'll stop here. We'll continue next week. If you have any questions, shoot your questions on the group and one of us will answer. Stay safe. Let's conclude. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Nirāmayaः Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritangamaya Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Take care everyone.